We're going to call this meeting to order. It's 5:30, March 22nd, regular meeting of the Planning Commission. We'll start with a roll call. Jacob Gray, District 3.
Tom Gay, District 3.
Kate Arlington, District 3.
Matt Clark, District 1.
Steve Frock, District 1. Todd Queen, District 1.
Tori Turner, District 2.
Tate Locke, District 2.
Lane Gomez, District 2.
Artie Hutto, District 2.
Great. The first thing I have on the agenda is.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I want to point out that Commissioner Watson is on Zoom.
Sorry, Cindy. Cindy, are you able to say hello? She may not. It's okay. Let me know Cindy Watson from District 1 is online. For the first piece of the agenda, I have advice from council. We're going to enter executive session to discuss advice regarding options for addressing and implementing planning commission bylaws, so that not all of you have to exit. We as the planning commission we're going to go into another room. Will probably be somewhere around 30 minutes because we do have a hearing after that. So I would need a motion to enter executive session.
So moved.
Chair, I'd just like to state that the purpose of this executive session is advice of council pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 246402-4B, and that is for the purpose of discussion and advice regarding options for addressing and implementing planning commission bylaws. I'll remind everyone that's present in the executive session that discussion of this legal question and the advice received from council constitute a privileged attorney-client communication. Therefore, no record or electronic recording is required to be kept. I remind the commission and all present in the executive session to limit your discussion to the applicable legal question.
Thank you. There is a motion on the floor to enter session. I need a second.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We will be back. Did it executive session. We have, the next thing on our agenda is meeting minutes. We have the minutes from February 22, recommendation to approve the action minutes as presented.
Mr. Chair, I mean, actually, the next item is agenda additions, deletions, or corrections. So if you want to change the order, or if there's anything you want to add or delete from the agenda.
Okay. Yeah, so after talking to John, we've talked about moving the election of the officers till after the business we have. We recognize and we apologize for the time that we've had our applicants, Mr. John Gray, no relation, let that be known. So we want to move forward with that. So we're going to move the, as the vice chair that has stepped up into chair, I will be acting as chair for this public hearing. We'll be doing our election of officers after that. With that being said, we have minutes to accept. I'd entertain a motion to accept the minutes from February 22, if anyone has read those.
I'll move we accept the minutes of March 8th, 2023.
A motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. The next piece of our agenda is the public hearing of PLN 2022-024.
I will give that presentation, Mr. Chair. If somebody wants to speak on this item, we'd like you to sign in if you haven't already. If not, then pass that to the chair. Okay, so this item before you today, PLN 22024 Gray, there's two considerations for your commission. Rezone of a portion of the property, and then a subdivision would be considered a preliminary plat because it includes 6 lots. Next slide. The property is on the north side of U Trail Road. There are 2 points of access that the property has. There's 2 60-foot wide easements that connect to the property. property is outlined in red. It's about 120 acres currently. Next slide. So back in 2020, there was an application. This is a sketch plan showing, again, a 6-lot subdivision. Ultimately, this application expired. The applicant did move forward with a boundary line adjustment. You can go to the next slide. You can see kind of in the red areas on the left-hand side of the property, and then down on the lower part, there's a little triangular piece. There's a boundary line adjustment that added those areas to the neighboring properties. And you can see the zoning, how it works along U Trail Road is primarily zoned as A5. Then as you go north, it transitions to A20, and then from there to A35, north of the gray property. So this is a sketch plan that we received in 2022, starting to change a little bit from what the plan was back in 2020. You have the kind of the 5 lots down along the bottom, and then keeping 70+ acres up above. You can see the light blue dashed lines. There's a number of drainage areas that go through the property. Next slide. So this is the preliminary plat that is before you. The applicant is proposing to do this in 2 phases, where phase 1 would be lot 1, which is the lot highlighted in red. And at that point, then lot 2 would be the remaining, the purple part. The access in yellow extends up from where it currently connects into the property and culminates at a cul-de-sac at the northern end for lot 2. As staff was looking at this, one of the things that we'd like the planning commission to consider is the configuration of lot 1, the way it kind of goes around the neighboring lot there, as well as there's a line there showing the reed ditch that kind of aligns where the current irrigated lands are located. So that was two reasons for that. If that were adjusted, then that's about 3 acres. Difference currently, lot 1 is about 14 acres. Next slide. So phase 2 then would be the remaining part of the 6-lot subdivision. Lots 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6. 2 gets reconfigured, and then creating lots 3, 4, 5, and 6. At that point, a secondary access using the other easement would be created as an emergency access. That's the other yellow access that's shown on there. Next slide. So for the rezoning, the land use code has certain criteria for considering a rezone. One is for resource protection, significant natural resources, and to avoid hazards like fire and flood. Also, consistency with the master plan. The master plan land use identifies this as intermixed rural communities and agriculture. So it's rural, residential, and agriculture. And that there are adequate public facilities, access, water, that type of thing. And then making additional findings, you have to find one of 3 criteria. The plan implementation, it implements the land use code, character of the area, or the increase of land inventory is needed for additional housing. We need the additional residential lots, that type of thing. Next slide. So this is a wildfire risk map that was prepared by the county's GIS. It's actually lower risk on the upper part of the property, low risk down in the lower part where the lots would be created, which is similar to the lots that are along U Trail Road. Next slide. Also, again, looking at the significant natural resources, we looked at wildlife, critical habitat. You don't see any lines on here because there is no critical habitat on this property. There is obviously migration for deer and elk and that type of thing, but not when it comes to critical habitat for endangered species and that type of thing. So effectively, the red highlighted area is the area that would be rezoned. It's about 43 acres, rezoned from A20 to A5, and that would facilitate the subdivision. All the lots are at least 5 acres in size. Next slide. This is what it would look like on the zoning map. If the rezoning were to be approved, the map would be revised. When the boundary line adjustments were done, there was also supposed to be a rezone so that those lots were entirely zoned A5. So what I would pose from a staff perspective is that be included as part of the rezone if that's the decision of the commission and ultimately the board. Next slide. So with that, staff is recommending that we find that the rezoning standards are met, but that's up to your commission to make that determination, make that finding as a recommendation to the board. That would include rezoning the southern 43 acres from A20 to A5. And we also are recommending that you conditionally approve the preliminary plat in 2 phases. That concludes my presentation.
Are there any questions from the commission to staff at this moment? Just go around the room, starting party.
Nope.
Great. Jake?
Domestic water, is there need there? Is that Upper Surface Creek Water District, do we know, and if they chimed in on water taps available?
Though the taps are available, Kate, you actually had the conversation. It's a matter of them having water available up on the mesa as a trade-off, but taps are available. Anything to add to that?
No, that was the gist of it. But I did confirm that there are taps available up there.
Is it gonna be a requirement, final plat
Yes.
per phase?
So with the one of the conditions are that with each phase, as a lot is created, they have to provide the tap before we will accept the final plat, as well as the access.
And is there a well at all right now?
No, I do not believe so.
That cul-de-sac, that long cul-de-sac, just when it's created for phase 1, that's considered a private drive, I'm sure. And there's maximum number of lots per private drive. But is that why the loop comes back into play for the second access?
Well, under the land use code, if you have 8 or more lots serving, then you need to have a secondary access. While this is creating 6 lots, there are those other couple lots that will utilize that existing access off of Ute Trail Road, which would be like with lot 1, if you want to go back one, Kim. So that lower part of that yellow highlight is currently providing access to the 2 lots on each side of that. So now we're adding 6. So from a staff perspective, we were looking at it as, besides just the area, it makes sense to have a secondary access for emergency purposes.
So it'll just be emergency purpose.
Correct.
For that, and then private drive for the other.
Yes,
And is there gonna be a road maintenance agreement?
there would need to be, yes, as a private.
Phase 1 or phase 2?
Um,
We probably don't need it till phase 2.
I don't think it's really critical until phase 2. Phase 1, there's still the shared between lot 1 and lot 2 if they don't finish the rest of the subdivision. So I guess that's something for your planning commission to consider how that condition is worded.
Irrigation water involved in this?
Yes, there is. Kate, do you have that?
Specifics on irrigation, but I know.
And then while we're waiting on that, is there any limitations to rezoning the other A20 parcel in the future? Because it's part of a rezone for.
No, no, there's no restriction for that.
That answers my questions.
Victoria?
Except for the irrigation water question.
Okay. We'll get back to that. Mr. Schrock?
Do we have an overhead photo of this property? Oh, there. So that wildfire hazard map,
You want to go to the wildfire?
yeah, I'm
Yep.
curious about that, about why that what looks like the northern part is, am I reading that correctly?
Is a lower risk than, yeah,
And if I look at that picture, it looks like the vegetation is in the northern part more than the southern part. Can you explain that if I got it wrong?
no, you have it right. I had the same question, but I don't have an answer other than GIS
Who did this wildfire this month?
The community, the Southwest Wildfire Council provides these maps directly to GIS.
Is there any indication of the WUI on this that we know about?
I'd have to look. I don't know that off the top of my head.
It's wild land
Urban
urban
interface.
Right. And that's typically though from between federal and private lands.
Yeah, but there's an official designation, is that correct? Yeah, we once had somebody from Cedar Ridge, one of their former mayors at one of our meetings, say that the fire broke out in that country, there was a right wind that would go all the way to Glenwood. And so, I mean, the fire hazards in that Cedar Ridge country, north of Cedar Ridge, is a real issue, it seems to me. I just want to make sure we do the right thing here.
The whole town's in it though.
This, do we know of any? We know they can have water taps.
Mhm.
Can they have fire hydrants? Is the capacity of the delivery lines?
Yes, there is, actually, there is a water line, there's an easement that runs through the property, and that is a 6-inch line that could support a fire hydrant. We have not received comments back from the fire department yet.
And does the proposal include that from the applicant or not?
We have not received comments from the fire department, so we look to the fire department to make that recommendation of whether or not a fire hydrant is needed here.
Do you know where one's at closest or not?
I do not.
No,
There, you say there is one around there somewhere?
I can pull up a map if you give me a minute.
And as she's doing that, I'm just looking at this, what's apparently the secondary access. And on the sketch plan, preliminary plat, it's called a fire access easement. And that easement extends down from the proposed development to the property of Mr. Herrera, Steve Herrera. And it looks like it already exists on his property. Is that, am I concluding that correctly? Since that's, his property is not part of this application.
those easements are actually part of the Timberline Park parcel.
So they're in place already on.
Yes,
Mr. Herrera's
that's
property.
correct.
Okay. As I look at that overhead photo, I sure don't see any sort of thing that looked like an access to Mr. Herrera's property. I mean, when I did it under Google Maps, I tried to look at it pretty closely. So it's there, it's platted, but in reality, it's not in use. Maybe somebody will be able to tell us about that in the audience, but it sure doesn't look like it's there, is what I'm saying.
Correct. As far as where the emergency access is, no, it has not been developed at this point. That's my understanding anyway, but Mr. Gray could probably explain that.
And he could explain how it will be developed. Okay. Yeah, I'm just saying that I think fire and water are pretty important, so if we can hear more about that. I think that's all for me now.
Todd.
So part of the conditions for the conditional use will be that both phases are completed, correct?
Well, yes, I mean, the idea is that when you approve a preliminary plat, it goes to the board as a recommendation. The board approves the preliminary plat. They have to come back with the final plat. They're asking to do that in 2 phases. First phase would be to create lot 1. Phase 2 would be to create the rest of the lots. There have been cases where people have not finished their plats and the plats have expired. So that timeline is in the conditions as well as the land use code.
So what happens if that plat does expire? It just goes back to the original?
It would go back, it would go stay, if they did, say they do phase 1 and they don't do phase 2, it would look like this. Lot 2 would be the purple lot. So they still have to have that yellow access when they create phase 1. And then obviously that gets intensified when the additional lots are created. So what we want to look at is if phase two never were to happen, we want to make sure we aren't left with a road to nowhere.
Is there anything in the land use code that designates how irrigation shares for this overall property are distributed amongst the acreage as it's split among the lots? Or those shares stay with the property?
No, the way the land use code is what, we just want to know what they're doing. We don't dictate how they want to split the irrigation shares. And that, so the condition includes an irrigation plan. If they're splitting shares, make sure there's access to head gates, access to ditches for maintenance purposes, that type of thing.
Because it seems that we would want to make sure that there's some form of system that ensures that irrigation can continue for all of these landowners.
Right, especially with all the different,
It's needed
Well,
water, though.
yeah,
It's
but
not
he
a
doesn't have to
type of-
divide it to all landowners.
They can sell that water.
He could still plan, or he could put it all to one lot. But we just have to get an irrigation plan.
So is that just different in Cedar Edge? Because I know there's parts where you cannot sell the water from your.
That's all deeded water up there. It's all like, not no side of the ground, you can wall water off of it.
We should hear from the applicant, maybe.
Yeah.
No further questions?
Matt?
Well, sounds okay to me. Phase two then that would be the point at which the extra road would be.
The emergency access, correct,
much access
right.
Development. They have electricity up there?
They will need, again, for accepting the final plat, they will need to have electricity run to all the lots, access for each of the lots, water for each of the lots.
I have a question about how the phasing works with the rezoning. Because if they only complete phase one, but we rezone basically the southern part to A5 and leave the top part in A20, then lot two will be a split zone on a same piece of property if they never complete phase two. How
So,
does that work?
so that's why we put in condition 10, rezoning for each lot shall not take effect until or unless a final plat is accepted by the Board of County Commissioners. So they come up with the final plat gets accepted, then we change the map.
Okay, I think that's my only question.
Yeah, wait to hear from the applicant. I've got some questions about irrigation water as well and distribution of that. If they're gonna allocate it into the lots, some of the access about what's recorded and what's not recorded. I go to the maps and I'm not quite sure what is recorded as far as an access easement, but I'm gonna wait for the applicant to make the presentation.
Before we do we have an update on either fire hydrant map or irrigation?
So according to the application, because we do have that as part of our application, it says is irrigation water currently available and or used on this site? And the applicant checked no. So I think it would be best answered by them what the irrigation status is. As far as the fire hydrants, based on our GIS mapping, where on the map where the yellow piece is right before phase one, it looks like there's a fire hydrant located there, possibly within that easement. And then there's one to the west or to the east, but you can't see it based on this depiction. So there are two in the area.
I'm sorry, where was the first one?
It's within the yellow easement
You
part.
can use the
going
mouse
up.
to,
And it's existing already.
According to our GIS maps, that's where it is. Hold on, sorry, I'm trying to get the mouse to work. So right in this area is where it's showing it on our map. Can you see the mouse? See?
and generally the rule of thumb is that it's 1,000 feet from a fire hydrant.
How long is that cul-de-sac all the way up to the?
It's right around 1,000 feet, I believe.
The whole thing?
Yes.
This time, I'd like to address Mr. Gray. If you have any context for us or anything you'd like to answer, before we ask questions of you, I'd ask you to speak now. Is Mr. Gray here? Is anyone
Is he
representing him?
online?
Well, I saw him online, but
Oh, shoot, I forgot about Cindy. Cindy, before we go to Mr. Gray, Cindy, do you have any questions of staff? I'm so sorry.
No, not at this time. I'm getting my questions answered. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you.
Have a water line running right through the property there?
Yes.
Is it Cedar Edge?
Cedar Edge and Upper Surface Creek kind of share the same easement line there.
That's about so.
Is that their main delivery line?
That's the main line.
so it does not look like he is online.
Okay.
Okay.
So we can't get any questions answered about irrigation or.
We cannot. We can go to, what I would suggest is we hear from the public. And then we may have a pretty quick determination to maybe wait to hear from the applicant, depending on how the board feels. So I have names here. If you are part of the public and you want to address this application, I'd ask that you address it to, well, I guess since he's not here, sometimes we have it where public talks to the applicant, but we'd ask going forward if you direct it to the planning commission. I have 2 Lightfoots.
No, you don't have anything to say.
I have nothing to say on this subject, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd appreciate it if you speak a little louder.
Okay. Ms. Sorensen, the mic.
The mic, it doesn't.
I'll try to talk louder. Ms. Sorensen
Not on this subject.
and Mr. Rockwell.
No, not on the subject.
Okay. Is there anyone that I missed that is speaking on behalf of this application? That was easy. Bring it back to the commission. We'll close the public comment period of this. How do we want to proceed?
What's a little difficult, one question I was gonna ask, if any of this is currently in agriculture. Producing. Because we wonder about the alignment on that there. So that'd be nice to understand. And I also have a question about if there's proposed building envelopes or not. One more final question for staff. Is there a limitation on rezoning the A5 sections in the future? If they try to rezone A5, there's not a limitation on 30 plus, okay?
No, when you rezone, it doesn't carry any restriction for further rezoning or changes in the future.
Did we have reason to believe that Mr. Gray would be?
Yes.
Mr. Gray is in California. He was supposed to be online for this meeting.
Is there any, you don't represent the applicant at all?
No, I'm just interested in buying the parcel.
Ah.
I could call him on the phone. I know he was planning to be a part of this meeting.
Did he mention anything about irrigation water to you?
But as far as I know, it's what's written in here. It says the irrigation water will remain in block 2.
You don't like taking your car.
I don't want any.
The question is, do we want to wait until we have contact with the applicant?
I
before-
motion that we table this application until we can hear from the applicant.
That's it.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
When do they get back in line? Is this like gonna take spot of someone else that's been in line, or how's that work?
No, we can put it on the next agenda.
Is there someone else on the next agenda?
We don't have another project.
Okay, that makes sense.
Does anyone know why?
did we
he's
get
not
who
part of
seconded
this meeting tonight?
I didn't get who seconded. Steve.
Steve second.
Okay, thank you.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, nay. Is that you, Cindy? Okay. So where are we going from here, Carl?
You still have item B1, election of officers.
Okay. So it's been made clear to us that we need to elect officers because our previous election was not conducted correctly, because our bylaws do say that chair needs to sit in that position for no more than 2 years. So as elected as vice chair, I'm acting as chair now. I will preside over this election, and if there's a new chair, you'll sit here. I would entertain any nominations for chairman.
Nominate Jacob Gray for chairman.
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
That seems like a pretty good option. I don't know if it changes the vice chair or not, but I don't think it should. You nominated, you seconded it, yeah?
I can't understand what
We
you're
should
saying.
discuss it.
Speak up, please.
I didn't say much.
Well, I still like to hear what you said.
I said we should, it sounds like a good idea.
Okay.
But we still have to elect a vice chairman.
If Jacob is elected as chair, then the vice chair position would become vacant, and then you could fill that, yes.
Are there any other nominations for chair?
Well, there's a motion in a second.
Oh,
We should vote on it. You like being chair?
well, if
Or amend it.
it was an election, we would want to see if there was more than one nomination.
Okay.
But seeing none.
I vote aye.
We've been there before.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to step into this. We'll move forward and conduct the business that we need to do. So that's all I got for you.
Take a vote.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Thanks. Andy.
That was an aye, not a nay.
That was an aye. Now we would need a nomination for vice chair.
Well, let's find out if, just to throw it out there, who's interested in the vice chair position.
I'd like to ask a question to Cindy in that regard.
Yeah.
Cindy, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Discussing the vice chairmanship. I've made my views known quite often about the divided nature of that by districts. My question for you is, would you have an interest in serving as vice chair?
I do not, but I would have a motion of selecting somebody or offering that position to somebody.
Who would that be?
I would like to see Kate Darlington be our vice chair, please, as a motion.
Motion on the floor. Is there a second? Are there any other nominations for vice chair? There's a motion. Is there a second for Tom K? There's a second.
But the second isn't necessarily, or, you know, it's not. Everybody's fine.
Let's hear from the candidates.
I would be happy to serve as vice chair. If y'all want me. Yeah. I don't have a big campaign speech, I guess. I want to make sure it's something that, you know, the commission all wants, and I want to make decisions that move us forward and conducting meetings well. So if y'all think I can help in that way, I'd be happy to serve.
I think Kate wants to do it. I think it's a great choice. I think I understand Steve's concern. I think it's a bylaw question. I think we should address it with the bylaws at some point. I would talk about that. And so in that case, I'd like to vote my name for the nomination. regular member. Through the balance of this term, we'll have new elections in February. And
Is the board okay with that? Whoever nominated Tom K. Okay with him withdrawing his name in the second?
For sure.
Okay.
Is there anyone else that's interested?
Cindy, can you mute yourself? Thank you. All right, we just did.
Thank you.
Please serve as vice chair.
What'd you say?
She'd be happy to serve as vice chair, which would be, we'd need a motion in a second. So,
We call a vote, then we have a motion in a second. Could we just call a vote?
No, actually, the bylaws do speak to actually writing down if your choice
If
in
there
this
are
case, if there's in these
You're gonna give us a
multiple.
piece of paper.
Yep, that's what we're working on.
If there are two.
If more than one is
Well,
presented.
I think we should have more than one. I'll nominate Taylor. Turner, thank you.
So do we need an official motion in a second for the preliminary contention?
Sure, I'd second,
Okay.
just so we get to write names on a piece of paper.
Sure.
You'll need to make an exception for Cindy being on Zoom. Or
Should we add it to chat or something?
If it is written as our bylaws say.
Jacob, as a citizen, I'd like to know, when do we get to speak on what's happening here?
Don't know if that's gonna happen tonight
Okay, when will it happen
regarding this election.
regarding the bylaws and what's happening in representation of the citizens of unincorporated Delta County?
when the bylaws are on the agenda, there will be an
Yeah, we'll be talking
opportunity.
about bylaws next. What's Cindy's number?
It's right on that white paper.
Yeah, just for clarification, we're writing our choice.
Yeah,
Your choice is.
Both
yeah,
candidates.
This is your
between Kate or
ballot.
Victoria, write one name on the piece of paper.
Vice chair.
Yes. For vice chair, right?
And then who you are for.
No, we do,
Anonymous.
we don't,
Need your name on
we do not need your name on it. You each have one piece of paper, one vote.
Can I pick the name? Absolutely.
You want me to tell
You
them?
can do it. You can do it after we tally them up, just if it makes you feel good.
That's a way to do it, though, it's like, there's like, you weigh it by how many votes are in there, but it's still luck of the draw.
Cindy, I did send you a text, since we are voting by write-in. I would ask if you text me your decision.
So Kim, first confirm that there are 10 pieces because there are 10 commissioners in the room.
I said right down the path. Do associates vote in this matter, or is it just,
We have unless there's a vacancy,
okay,
so the associates.
so it should be eight pieces of paper.
Right. No, all your representatives from district are here, so no.
Some of them gotta come back.
The one in green ink, you can take out.
Well, let's just tally it up to see what happens.
Two in green ink.
If we're down, if it's really close, no, so Lane wouldn't vote either. And the only one missing is David,
Who wouldn't vote?
who wouldn't vote anyway. Correct.
And you got Cindy.
Cindy's on the
Did you
agenda.
get city vote?
to write that.
I have not received Cindy's vote yet.
Are you nervous?
Okay. Okay. The election is in. Kate Darlington received 8 votes. Victoria received 2 votes. Kate is your new vice chair.
Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, Kate.
Hopefully Jake never reason, misses a meeting.
Jacob, I just have one question.
Yeah.
I'm curious if we're gonna have a public comment about the bylaws where we can speak. And when will that happen?
Yeah, so I'll move into that now. We'll give a little bit of context. We, according to our bylaws, we cannot make any changes without a 2 weeks written notice.
Right.
And so what the tentative plan is, we're going to talk about it now, but the tentative plan that I proposed is that we will submit amendments to these bylaws to Carl. He will provide us a red line version. We will discuss this in a work session in a couple of weeks, possibly in 2 weeks. We will put out a final draft that will go out, and we will consider that for 2 weeks, and we will vote on it. So a vote won't even happen for another month.
So my question is, Miss Darlington is out, or she's in town limits. How is she representing the people of unincorporated Delta County?
Yeah, we've received comment on that from our lawyer, and we can clear that up. Do you want to clear that up now?
Yeah, yeah.
We want to know.
Yeah.
We have the right to know.
Well, there you go.
Okay, so the county attorney weighed in last week or when we met, and we, and then again, this was part of the executive session. And this again is based on statute. So it says, CRS 30-28-103 addresses the membership requirements of PC members. It states each such members of the commission shall be resident of the county. In resolution number 2018 R-025, the BOCC directed the PC to ensure that such laws adopted are consistent with 30-28-103. The PC bylaws then again are in part inconsistent with the state statute and inconsistent with the BOCC. Therefore, the dispute that the BOCC has the authority to create a planning commission and appoint members within the limitations of the statute. Basically, the PC has no authority to adopt bylaws in conflict with the state statute and the BOCC direction. So with the CRS 30-28103, then the bylaws cannot restrict where the representation. And the statute clearly says that it from the county. It doesn't say unincorporated. It doesn't say not municipality. So this is direction from the county attorney. And this is what was presented in the executive session.
So
Okay.
as a citizen of unincorporated Delta County, I think that this board should be representing the people of unincorporated Delta County.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. We'll have your comments when we have language to discuss. So I'd really rather not.
But it's about the resolution that you're quoting.
Make it brief, please.
So section 6 of that resolution states that the BOCC directs the planning commission to adopt any rules it deems necessary to conduct its meetings and to seek advice of the county attorney and community development director to ensure such policies are consistent with 30-28-103 CRS and the Colorado Open Meeting Law, Colorado Open Records Act, and best management practices for open and transparent government. And that resolution was enacted in December 3rd, 2018.
Yes.
The section 1.1 of the Delta County Planning Commission bylaws adopted on February 1st, 2019, which is 3 months, more or less, afterwards, states that the Delta County Planning Commission is authorized to adopt rules and regulations governing its procedure pursuant to 30-28-104 CRS as amended. These policies and procedures shall constitute compliance with the provision. Section 5.1 of the same bylaws says, in accordance with CRS 30-28-103, subsection 1, the board have established that the commission will be comprised of 9 regular members who reside in unincorporated areas of the Delta County.
Thank you. Be closing public comment. Next thing on our agenda.
The department report.
Anybody else want to say anything?
No, thank you.
The chat.
No, thank you.
So a few things for the department report, Mr. Chair. First of all, yesterday or Tuesday, the board adopted a solar moratorium. So it basically extended, there was previously a 6-month moratorium until the land use code was adopted. That 6-month expired. The board has adopted a moratorium for an additional 6 months or until the land use code has standards relative to renewable energy facilities. So that would effectively go through September of 2023.
For commercial.
That's for commercial only. It does not affect personal, private solar. Also, the board awarded a contract for housing strategy, comprehensive housing strategy to Contour Design Collective. They're out of Minturn, Colorado. And so we will be working with them as far as getting under contract. And after that, it's about, it's a few months until that would be completed. The idea there is that it's looking at locations for affordable housing, what would be suitable within Delta County, and then some policies that effectively could go into the master plan if the planning commission so decides to build that into your master plan. Finally, the
Can I
board,
ask a question about
the,
that study?
okay,
Do we have any role in that study in terms of
the
working with a contractor or?
the consultant will be meeting with public entities as well as well, I'll just go through the tasks real quick. Task 1 is they'll review background information, data, policy, and plans. That includes a preliminary needs analysis that was prepared for Delta County by the Housing Authority. The community meetings that were held by Hood, that group, as well as there's a capstone student that is currently doing some mapping based on infrastructure and things like that, that will help inform that strategy. Task 2 is the Contour team will engage the public and policymakers to gain multiple perspectives and perceptions. So there's kind of two things there. The capstone student will be giving a presentation, I think it's in May, if I remember right. So the idea is to have this consultant on board, planning commission, the board would hear the results from the capstone student, and then this contractor would build from there.
I would point out here, however that works, I'm okay with, but we did however many years ago, the planning commission passed a resolution prioritizing affordable housing in Delta County and urging the county commissioners to take a look at every opportunity to look at county land, look at other kinds of things that could help support affordable housing. So we took that action independently of anybody. I would just hope that at some point the county commissioners would understand that we have had a long-standing interest in that as a body, and that we would maybe be consulted on how this study proceeds.
Okay. The final item for department report is the Board of County Commissioners has been working through the land use code. They've been having work sessions. They're continuing to have work sessions through probably the first part of May. And then they have asked if the Planning Commission would like to have a joint work session with the board. So once the board has gotten through the land use code, have a joint work session to go over what they are looking at prior to coming to your Planning Commission to then report back to the board. So ideally right now, the timeline, if everything continues and is finished, would be the end of May to come to your Planning Commission to report to the board. And that point, then the board would have their public hearing after that in June.
And the work session would be somewhere before that.
The work session they are looking at was May 8th. Or at least during that week, if it's easier for the Planning Commission, since you meet in the evenings, 5:30, that I think they offered to participate in your meeting on May 10th. that right?
If we didn't have anything else scheduled.
So if commissioners, if you look at your calendars, if that would be Monday, May 8th from 9 to 11 works, or if you prefer to have that as a joint meeting at your regular meeting of May 10th.
Probably easier to do it during the 10th. We're already planning to be here.
Can't hear you, Jacob.
We'll likely have it on the 10th of May. Unless anybody else wants to come in here on a Monday morning.
I would prefer the 10th.
Okay.
So hopefully we can just,
We'll report that back to the board.
Yeah.
That concludes my department report.
I have E commissioner comments, requests and referrals. As I alluded to earlier, I'm going to present that we, fix some things in our bylaws. Obviously, there's still references to specific development, still references to meetings in Hotchkiss. There's a lot of things that, this was put in place in 2019. We have a new LUC, so we've got a lot of cleanup to do. We've had questions about bylaws come up. What I'm presenting or suggesting we do is that we bring our edits to Carl over the next 2 weeks before our next meeting. He will compile those. We'll have a work session either before or after a public hearing item. Obviously, Mr. Gray will be in 2 weeks. We'll discuss it there. We'll create a draft of changes that we will vote on. And then 2 weeks after that, we will vote one by one on those changes. So this work session will not have public comment, but when we have the final draft to vote on, we will take public comment.
And as always, you can write public comment in at any point, and that public comment is given to us as it comes in.
Where would that be submitted?
So you can submit comments to the planning department if you do it by email. Our email has changed, so it's planning@deltacountyco.gov.
Say that again, please.
Planning@deltacounty, spelled out, co.gov.
And for people that do not use the internet or have access to that, what do they do?
We'll have a public hearing in a month for,
They can also send written comments to the planning board.
you can mail a letter.
Your change before we have a public hearing. We need to know your change before we have a public hearing. How we know that?
How you get there.
I mean, it just seems like you guys are ignoring us.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I mean, it's obvious.
The bylaws are our rules that and procedures that we abide by for the process of meeting. And so it's up to us, apparently, we've gotten a legal consult to write those in any fashion that we like. So we don't have to accept a public comment, but we probably will, like to understand what the public has to say.
I
So
mean, you represent us, how you don't take public.
Okay,
comment.
we are going above and beyond what we're required to do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the issue of membership,
Steve.
just a minute, because it wasn't said. We
Steve,
don't appoint.
Steve, you need to get permission through the chair to have the floor to speak.
Really?
I thought it was open comments from commission members.
Direct him here.
I apologize for stepping on.
That's
this.
okay. Direct him here.
The issue of membership and where they reside on the planning commission is something we don't even handle. I mean, the commission members are appointed by the Board of County Commissioners.
Right.
We don't even know who they are. We don't know who the applicants are, where they're from, or anything about it. So there may be a misconception that we do, that we're appointing our own members. I just wanted to clear that
Well,
up.
they are in our bylaws, which obviously need work. So,
Correct, but we don't appoint them.
No.
Commissioners do.
how does the commission feel about this proposed plan?
I would ask that we have all those red lines to Carl within the next week.
It'd be the
So
next,
Carl has some time to put that together before 2 weeks from now.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I recommend that we try to solicit as much as the public comment as we can get. This is a very hot topic in our community right now. We want to be transparent.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think if they see it the way we're seeing it, with the information we have, they'll come up with the right solution as well.
they will.
We like that. Thank you.
Are there any other commissioner requests, referrals, comments? Seeing none, I will adjourn the meeting.
Don't congratulate him or